What's going on, guys? Shonen Express here, welcoming you back to the Shonen Express podcast. This week we are going over volume 44 of the 2023 run of Weekly Shonen Jump. This podcast is all about Weekly Shonen Jump. So every week the Weekly Shonen Jump comes out, I'm going to produce another podcast episode where we talk about everything that goes on in the magazine. Now, for those of you who haven't seen the last video or aren't, kind of caught up on how I do these videos, I'm going to leave the timestamps in the description for every series that I'm going to talk about today. And the reason why I think that's important is because I want you guys to listen to this podcast, and if you only read a couple of the series in Weekly Shonen Jump, I want you to be able to go right to the spot where I talk about your favorite series and listen to the things that I have to say. I would love engagement on this channel and engagement with this podcast based on the manga that you folks really like to read. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely this is the right podcast for you, and I will leave those timestamps down in the description. Remember, there will be spoilers for every series as I talk about it. And so if you don't want spoilers on a certain series, that's totally fine. Makes sense to me. And so all you got to do is look down, see, okay, I haven't maybe read this chapter yet this week. I'm going to go read it, and then I'll go back to the podcast to that time stamp and hear what Shonen Express has to say about it. But without spending too much time on that, let's just get right into it. So this week, the cover page went to Undead Unluck. This week, chapter 177 came out. I am definitely an Undead Unluck fan. There's no questions about that. I like this series, and I have for a long time. Really since it came out. I think, I've been reading this series since it first came out in Weekly Shonen Jump. The cover page itself looked kind of cool. I don't know if you guys got a chance to see what the cover of the magazine looked like, but it did look pretty cool. And the color page itself, I love the little explanation at the beginning with the Apocalypse, the book, explaining that there are master rules, that there is a set of these master rules, and there's one more added every time Ragnarok happens. So every time a loop occurs, another master rule is added. And the 2-page color spread that comes with the cover was awesome. It kind of, went back to the beginning. You saw all the people in the first iteration of the loop, where we came from. You saw all of them. As well as Fuko and Andy, it looks like, in the beginning of the series. So it was a great color page, a really cool color page for this series. But yeah, I like that those 2 pages were definitely in color. And so we pick up with Rip and Latla and Layla on their way to the hospital, and Rayla's already beginning to be injured because she's getting close to sick. But this is where we first see Uma sick. We get a look at him, and it says he's in phase 2 right now, and he looks so cool. He's got that menacing, look in his face, like he's kind of like this sickly, effeminate kind of figure. He looks really cool. I really like the way he looks. And then, those little orbs that he has floating around him are super cool. Yeah, I really like I really like what he looks like. I also think it's interesting that they have to have Rip's abilities manifest while treating Rayla. That's how Unrepair manifests, is he awakens the ability as he's going to treat her, because that's the tragedy, right? The tragedy is that he cuts her body and then it can't ever be healed. It can't ever be sealed up, and that's why she dies. But to stop this tragedy, they've had him awaken and repair, and then they had Chikara stop him right in the nick of time. Before he actually cuts her. And so he has Unrepair, and the tragedy hasn't happened. So now, all we have to do is get Rip in the battle and get him to fight Uma sick. But before we get that, the last page of this chapter was a cool, almost double-page spread of the Union, of the new Union, led by Fuko. And so it was, it's such a cool spread, that page. So I really love that most of the Union is together now. We've got everybody here that we're going to have, and so we are ready to commit the all-out war, except for there is a notable exception, which those of you who are fans of Undead Unluck know that Andy is missing. And so we've still yet to get Andy back. And I'm wondering how we're going to do that and when we're going to do that. But I like this chapter. I thought it was really cool. Great cover page chapter. I thought Undead Unluck was good. That was kind of my only thoughts on Undead Unluck this week. So the next chapter, well, you guys know that I go through this based on the color pages first, and one of the color pages this week went to a one-shot manga that we actually didn't get translated on the Viz website. So while maybe it's possible to find that manga somewhere else, I won't be covering it because I cannot get it on the Viz website like I can everything else. So we're only dealing with 2 color page chapters this week, and the first one went to 2 on Ice Chapter 2. So this is kind of predictable, right? Most second chapters get a color page, and this color page specifically is pretty simple. It's a almost watercolory kind of look at the 2 main characters getting ready for their training outside of the ice rink. As far as the chapter itself, I thought it was really good. It was a good second chapter. It followed up on all the things that the first chapter set out last week, and Hyumi's kind of like worry about whether he can really do the pairs skating workout. You know, is he physically strong enough? We get to know the twins a little bit more. We learn that their names are Natsuya and Natsubi, Natsuya being the boy and Natsubi being the girl, and that they are the trainers of Kisara, our other main character girl. I think the comments about her shirt were funny, that says "I can skate a little." You know, obviously she's a nationally ranked competitor in figure skating, so of course she could skate a little bit. What I liked about this chapter is you could really tell that this manga is going to be funny. It's gonna lean into the humor a little bit, which is good. I think it actually worked for this manga. I laughed a couple times when I looked at, you know, with some of the jokes, and so that was funny. But mainly this chapter focused on the amazing unity that Kisara and Hyumi have. And of course this would happen, right? Hyumi has literally been studying Kisara's techniques for years. This is what he has used as his model to try and figure skate. And so of course they would have a unity and an in-syncness that is incredible. And of course they do. There's this big, you know, 2-page spread of the 2 of them moving in sync, which is awesome. It looks great, with I believe Natsuya saying that they're perfectly in sync. This is great. I love that 2-page spread, and clearly Kisara is so into this. I love the doubling down of, if you are a figure skating couple, that does not mean that you're a real couple, where clearly Hyumi is taking it the wrong way, and Kisara says, if you take that the wrong way, you're dead. Another, humor thing, but I think it's funny. They're really doubling down on the fact that there doesn't have to be a romantic thing going on here, and I think that's important to remember, but I clearly think that there will be a romantic thing going on here. And so they come up with the idea to use a routine that Kisara once did before, that Hyumi has already memorized, to enter in a month to enter a pair skating competition. So or exhibition maybe, I forget what they actually call it. But they need a program, but they have this program that she's already developed and that he's learned. So they're just going to practice that and be on it. And we see that Kisara starts to call him Stalker Boy, which is funny at the end. But all in all, this is a good chapter. It followed up on some of the complexities that the first chapter set up, and it really established that humor is going to be a mainstay in this manga. I think that this manga is going to be funny from here on out. And so I'm looking forward to what else this manga has to show us. I will say, of the 3, now that we've had all 3 of this round of debuts show us both their first and second chapters, I think this manga, at least for me right now, based on everything we've seen, is coming in 3rd. And that's not really a surprise. That shouldn't be a surprise to any of you who know me, because this is not, really my kind of thing. But I have a lot of hope that this one will become more and more successful as it goes on. So those are my thoughts on 2 on Ice this week. The second and last color page this week went to Akane-Banashi, Chapter 80. And boy, do I love Akane-Banashi. This is another series that I collect personally. I think I collect everything that is physically released in English that's running in Weekly Shonen Jump right now. I'm not totally sure about that, but I think I do. But either way, I really love Akane-Banashi. I just read Volume 1 in my own collection not that long ago. And so I really like this series, and this chapter was incredible. I really, really loved this chapter. And the color page was great. I love the color page where Cho is on the back of the color page. we get to see him. We get to see that his hair is orange, which is funny. He's got that Ichigo kind of hair. And if you remember back to Bleach, Ichigo was made fun of because everybody said he dyed his hair. And so I would bet anything that Chocho is dyeing his hair that color. But it was a good color page. And of course, we see Akane there, under him with her, pink, like frosted tips or whatever you call that. I don't know. I don't do hair. Clearly, I'm not that, fashionable. But the ends of her hair are pink. So we see the similarities between those two. And then when we actually get into the chapter, he has hidden himself, Chocho has, hidden himself in a suitcase to get into the theater, which is so funny. And we see just how, like, magnetic of a person he is. And even Akane kind of notes that he's different than a lot of the other people that he knows, like Arara, who pulled everyone closer to her in, like, a scary kind of way. It seems like people flock to him because they like him. That he's not doing anything, like, that's totally out of left field, that people just like being around him, and it's really clear. I mean, his aura is incredibly enticing, and I, even as the reader, really like him after this chapter. I like that he just, like, gets to the point with a lot of things. I think the gambling thing is kind of funny, that this is going to be his shtick, that he's like the leave everything up to fate, let Lady Luck settle this one and all that kind of stuff. And of course he's pulled away before he gets the chance to do that. But even he is seeing similarities between Akane's dad and herself. So it's interesting to see that, and that before he goes on stage, he throws the dice to see how it's going to go, and he rolls a double fives, which is really interesting. And then he goes, "It's time to go big today." And then he goes out to this roarous applause, and it's such a cool panel, and he gets everybody's so hyped up. He, like, yells on stage, which is something we've never seen another performer do. Like, he's so into it. And even Master Hasho is kind of standing there commenting that he's this Rakugo with an insane amount of star power. And he also makes the claim that he thinks Akane is the same kind of Rakugoka as Chocho. And this makes a lot of sense. Akane is a very, like, out there, kind of in your face kind of person, and I think Chocho is too. And so I'm really interested to see how he performs and how his relationship with Akane goes forward, because I think that it's possible that they have some kind of mentorship relationship going forward. At least I hope that he doesn't disappear from the series entirely after this, because I really like him. He's my kind of character, and so I really liked seeing him, and I liked his introduction. But that's all I had to say about Akane-Banashi this week. Good chapter, good color page, and all that kind of stuff. Next up, we have Jujutsu Kaisen. Chapter 237 came out this week, and so after last week's incredibly, massive chapter, right, with, again, I said spoilers. There are spoilers in the Jujutsu Kaisen section, so you've been warned. But after Gojo's death and the end of that era in last week, we get this week, and we are right in. We are spending no time. We have jumped right in to Kashimo's assault on Sukuna. So here we are, and we see Uraume, maybe? I don't know how to say that name correctly, but she's falling with a huge thing of ice. But there was already a plan for this, because Hikari is there, and he traps her in his domain expansion. But the ice still falls, and in such a cool display, it, like, melts right before it hits the ground, and so this ton of water crashes on Sukuna as he grabs what has been used, or what has been the point of the huge ice thing, which is just to get him this cursed tool, which is called Supreme Martial Solution. And I don't know if it even says what its effect was. I don't know what this cursed tool does. I have no idea what it actually does, other than maybe affect somehow affect the fight. I don't know what's happening here. And this is actually something that happens pretty often in Jujutsu Kaisen for me, is I'll go back and I'll understand the situation a little better later, but right now I'm not sure I exactly know what's happening here. But Kashimo is here, and Kashimo is in the fight for sure, and Sukuna is not gonna let up. Sukuna is ready to go. And so Kashimo takes it on, and we see Kashimo use this technique called Mythical Beast Amber, which allows him to kind of transmute his body, it seems like, into some kind of like energy that can like do phenomena, I guess, manifest phenomena, right? So he can do various things and change the structure of his body in this way, to increase his agility and power and all of that thing. So we're seeing him, and he's actually landing some hits on Sukuna, which is good. But then, of course, we see that Sukuna has another layer, which is he can transform into his original form. We see him begin to do that here. He's grown another set of arms, as well as he looks like he has half of the Sukuna eyes and half of a regular human face. So I'm interested to see next chapter what happens from this, where this fight goes, and how this progresses, and really how the world of Jujutsu Kaisen moves on from the death of Gojo. I don't think this chapter really covered that for us, and so I'm excited to see kind of where we're headed from here. But it was a good Jujutsu Kaisen chapter nonetheless. Doesn't live up to the hype of last week, but of course it couldn't. There was so much hype put into last week. So we are on to a new battle. We're on to a new kind of place in Jujutsu Kaisen. So I'm excited to see where that goes. But those are my thoughts on Jujutsu Kaisen this week. So the next series up is My Hero Academia. This week, chapter 402 was released, and you may have heard, I don't know if I said it last week or maybe the week before, I'm not that big of a My Hero Academia fan. In all reality, it's not a series that has really grabbed me and kept my attention the way that it did at first. And so this last arc has really hurt my involvement in My Hero Academia. But this chapter, I will say, was very good. I think this chapter was really good. We see that as All For One gets closer to where Shigaraki is, he begins to try and exert his influence over Shigaraki, but Shigaraki is too powerful now. He keeps him out and doesn't allow him to interfere. But, of course, in an effort to kind of throw off the situation, All For One comes with All Might. All Might's tattered remains kind of flying in to put Midoriya Izuku in a bad position. And we see him remember all these times with All Might and how to strengthen his heart. And we also see that he believes All Might has finally lost. And so, finally, we see All Might's determination come back one more time, where he grabs on to All For One in an attempt to, I think, blow himself up and take him with him. And then we see the flashback to when he was saved by Shimura, when Shimura pushed him out to have him escape, and how All For One is reflecting on his battle with Shimura and how she died. It was an easy kill, but of course Toshinori, All Might, is even more unhinged, and he's even more ready to get back in the fight. And so I love that All Might is a character that I liked, that I really did like in the beginning of this series. I thought All Might was really cool. I liked him. I thought his determination was interesting, and his idea about what heroism was really interesting. And so I enjoyed following him all of these years that I've been reading My Hero Academia. And this, if he truly does die here, this is a good last stand for him. I think that All Might has had several chances to actually die in the series, and he hasn't taken them. And it could be that he doesn't die here either. But I think that if he did, I would be satisfied with this. I would be satisfied with All Might's death here. Even if he doesn't take out All For One, I think that that's still fine. I think that he has proven his undying will in this area. So I liked it. It was a good chapter. It was a great All Might chapter, and I'm an All Might fan. So I liked this chapter of My Hero Academia. It was definitely good, and I'm waiting to see what happens next week and what happens going forward. Is All Might gonna die? Is he not gonna die? Who knows? But that's really all I had to say about My Hero Academia this week. So the next series that we have to discuss this week is Kagurabachi Chapter 3. This is another one in our group of new series that have started in this round of Weekly Shonen Jump. Obviously, as this is only the third chapter. And I think this is a really good third chapter, guys. Of course I do. Out of the three that have started, it's no secret, I think, that if you've listened to my last two podcasts, that Kagurabachi is the series that I really love. It's a series that I hope goes on for a long time and ends up having a rich world of diverse characters and continues to be built up. You know what I mean? I like everything about this series, but we get introduced in this chapter to two new characters, really, but one of the new characters is Hinao, the store, the person who runs this shop, of this pretty much like information shop, and like job opportunity board for sorcerers. And we see that Shiba has been one of her clients before, and that 3 years ago he came here with Chihiro, after what had happened to Chihiro's father and with the blades being stolen. And so we see that this girl has known these guys for a while, and that this has kind of been a thing that she's in for. She's kind of like, bodyguards for hire is kind of what she does. And so we see this little girl come into the shop, and she has she's taken the little girl in because the little girl said something about a cursed sword that possibly she was attacked with. And so she calls Shiba and Chihiro to come and check this out. But of course, the little girl is not really a credible story. We find out that she's very tight-lipped about what's really going on. And I actually think the little girl, whose name is, I think, Char, whose name is Char, Char. I have to imagine that that's how you pronounce that. But she ends up going to lunch with Chihiro, while Shiba stays behind in the car trying to figure things out. And so Chihiro's, while he's feeding her, is trying to get more information out of her to see if this is a credible account of one of the weapons, the katana, that has been enhanced with sorcery. Is this one of the cursed blades that we are looking for? And so she is very tight-lipped about this, doesn't want to come clean and talk to him about this. And while they're having this conversation, this guy is being totally rude to the store owner and actually even shoves chopsticks in his neck towards the end, kind of in the background, which I actually think is really cool, that this is, kind of happening. And of course, pretty early on in this, pretty much after he sits down, I thought, this guy is not a normal guy. And of course he's not. He ends up being a sorcerer. He has kind of like a Daruma doll thing, and I'm wondering what his actual sorcery powers are. But I'm interested. The Daruma doll's cool. I'm looking forward to seeing what exactly this means. What's his powers. I also look forward to the fact that it seems like each of the weapons have a different kind of thing associated with them, right? Because Chihiro, when she says there was clouds that came out of the sword, Chihiro immediately thought of a specific blade. And so I'm interested to see what all of them have and what all of them do. And we haven't even seen one of them yet, so I shouldn't get as excited as I am, but I'm very excited. At the end of the chapter, Char has been caught, and Chihiro is going to go and save her. So we're about to see a fight between Chihiro and this sorcerer guy that I'm very excited to see. So I'm excited for the next chapter. It was a good chapter, good setup chapter for maybe an arc that's going to come up while we try to get this cloud sword, and obviously hunt down the sorcerer organization that we've been after all this time. So it was a great Kagurabachi chapter. I really like this manga. I have high hopes for this series going forward, but that's really all I had to say about Kagurabachi this week. The next series that we have to talk about is Mama Yuyu. Chapter 4 is what was released this week. We got a little bit more information about the world. This world is, or at least the continent that they're on, of Persimmon, is, I believe, how you would pronounce that, is in the shape of a cross with different factions having controlled different sides at different times, right? There's a couple islands scattered about as well. So we've learned a little bit more about the world, but mainly this chapter was testing Corleo's strength. It was Pinello. I believe that was the name of the officer who's with him, but it was Pinello testing Corleo's strength and trying to figure out what this sigil sorcery thing is that he's been talking about. And so while the train was stopped, they go on the roof to kind of have it out, right? To train a little bit and get a little bit of an understanding of what Corleo is capable of. And we see that Corleo is a terrible weakling. I mean, Pinello has to put up no fight at all to stop him. And so Corleo, again, is reinforced how weak he is, but he also reinforces his determination, and then we see the sigil on his hand glow. And so they take this opportunity to one more time try and have him fight Pinello. And he does get stronger. He gets faster. He definitely gets faster, and he tries to take Pinello's side. Of course, this is a really simple kind of thought, and Pinello is able to dodge it easily, but he's definitely much better with this. And so we have hope, right? Corleo has the ability to get stronger going forward here. We have some hope and maybe some direction for this training arc that's probably going to come up. And then the chapter ends by going over how Corleo didn't go to school. He just stayed with Mama. And so he didn't really have exposure to other people, and especially exposure to girls. And the other hero that we have found from another world, whose name is Alicia, maybe? Alicia? Oh, maybe Alicia. Woolpole, right? That's her name, and she is like this, overly cute girl. And I think it says she's 24. Yeah, she's 24 years old, and he can't even speak, and he freaks her out. Because this is probably the first time he's interacted with a female that's not, his adoptive mother. So that was kind of funny at the end there. So I'm looking forward to seeing kind of what her deal is, what her abilities are. Does she know about sigil sorcery? And if so, how much? And how does Corleo's training going to continue from here? So, I like Mama Yuyu. I want to have high hopes for it. I do have high hopes for it right now. And I hope that, as it goes, as it continues to progress, that we continue to get more detailed and more into this world and find out more about its power systems. Because I think there's interesting ideas here, and definitely he can, this mangaka is able to draw the demons very well, the monsters very, very well. So I'm interested to see kind of how this goes forward and what we see there. But that's really all I had to say about Mama Yuyu this week. The next series on our list is Sakamoto Days. This week they came out with chapter 137, and this week it picks up on the fight we left off with last week between Hisuke and the sniper Kamihate. And this week we find out why Shin, Sakamoto, and the other guy have been running around kind of like crazy this whole time. It's because Shin is trying to pick up the sniper's thoughts, and he's finally found him. And apparently the sniper in his own thoughts has gone into a backstory about his greatest kill, and how actually it was Sakamoto who made that kill. And they found that out through a series of things. You guys, hopefully you've read the chapter if you're listening to this, but so all those things. One of the things I think is hilarious is that every time this guy is pictured, it's just the end of the sniper rifle that is talking and making all of the observations. It also seems to imply that he somehow got into the exhibition with the sniper rifle just in the front, and I think it's probably a visual, like a stand-in for his actual being. But clearly Sakamoto made the kill, not him, and so he's jealous about that, and he wants to preserve his legacy as the greatest sniper to ever exist, and this kill is a big part of that. But one of the things that I loved about this chapter is that Hisuke finally figures out how he's gonna get to him. He lets Kamihate shoot right through the sight of his own gun, so that he can use that same line of fire to shoot at Kamihate, and it works. He hits the sight of Kamihate's gun. He shoots straight through the sight of Kamihate's gun. And it was so cool. It was such a cool fight. I love this fight. Like I said last week, I love snipers. I like long-range fighting in general. And this was really cool. I hope that we get to actually see Kamihate, what he looks like, or she looks like. At this point, we haven't seen them. and kind of how we go from here, because it seems like in this chapter, at the end of this chapter, Hisuke definitely won. So I loved that. I really liked this chapter. Yeah, but that's all I had to say about Sakamoto Days this week. The next series that we have to talk about is Nue's Exorcist. This week, chapter 20 came out. And so we've learned a little bit about what Shikigami do in this world and how that kind of works. And they're separated into 4 different classes based on their realm, the realm that they come from. And Rengo, that class of Shikigami, are the strongest. And that's the class that we just saw Moriyuki, the opponent we're fighting here. We just saw him summon that class of Shikigami. We see this giant kind of horse-like-ish dark creature, and it definitely looks intimidating for sure. I mean, this thing looks super evil. I like the description of, like, before, to summon one of these creatures, you would have to, like, pay more than 1 human life just to be able to do this. But in common, exorcism, they figured out how to summon this person without that, and that's what, the thing we saw around Moriyuki's neck was. And so we see this giant monster has come out, and in a sense, I forget what the guy's name, Shiroha's, like, familiar his name is. I forget what his name is, but he kind of explains to us kind of what's going on, and that giant halo thing, and the shadow of that halo, everything is going to be destroyed in its wake. And this thing is essentially a natural disaster that will consume everything. And we see Nue again protecting them. And this Nue, the one we've seen, gets destroyed. But in that destruction, we see a new Yue who seems to only speak in a different dialect because it's untranslated. I think, and you can correct me in the comments if I'm, dead wrong on this, but I think the characters that we're seeing in the text bubbles are Chinese, but I could be super off, and they could be gibberish. I mean, at one point it seems like there are 4 identical characters in the text bubbles, and that's supposed to say I should use this opportunity to show what it means to dominate. And so that seems like maybe not the thing. Also, this Nue is younger, and it seems like much stronger as she decimates the Rengo Shikigami that we have here. And so it's really cool to see this, and I'm interested to see going forward what this is going to mean, what this new Nue is, and how this fight with Moriyuki is going to be resolved, because I don't think this guy is going to be able to be killed or taken out here, but I also don't think that he's going to win either. So what's going to happen? How is he going to get away? And how do we go forward from this? Nue's Exorcist isn't a series that I have a ton of hope for going forward, but I think it could last if it finds its footing and it finds, a real storyline to go off of here. I think there's a possibility it could last, but either way, this was an interesting fight, and it was a really cool, I mean, the artwork, if nothing else, was incredible in this chapter. It's always incredible in this series, but it was very, very good this chapter. But that's really all I have to say about Nue's Exorcist this week. And that will bring us to Martial Master Asumi. This time we get chapter 15. That's the chapter that was released to us this week. And this chapter starts out by kind of going over all of the accolades of Kinojo, which is Nito's next opponent, right? Is Kinojo Sakura. He's like the typical, bancho gangster guy, and that's what he's known for. And we see in his fight, as their fight starts, we see that he is not trained. His fighting style is very rough and untrained and unpracticed and untechnical. He simply relies on his brute strength and his force to be able to fight through opponents who are much more skilled than he is. And we see this kind of come back to bite him in the butt, as Nito is much more skilled and much more technical, but his punches don't seem to do much. But finally, Nito, using his own strikes, gets him in a flying armbar. And as they say in this fight, Jujutsu, if you Jiu-Jitsu is a fighting style that requires a lot of knowledge to be able to know and execute, but also it requires knowledge to know how to get out of techniques. And so it's the perfect method to combat Kinojo, who doesn't seem to have any kind of particular strategy or fighting style, just likes to get in the ring and brawl it out. And so, but through this flying armbar, he doesn't tap out. Even though Nito is at the point where he's like, I could break this guy's arm. I mean, if this goes on, his arm's going to break. But Nito doesn't. Nito, obviously, he doesn't feel like he can take that extra step. And there are rules in MMA. He should not, do that in this instance. But also, Kinojo should tap out. And they kind of make clear that it's not honorable to do that. It's not a cool thing to stay in, even when you're beat like that. But Kinojo does last it out, and he lasts the round. So we are going to go into the next round. And, Nito looks pumped. He looks ready to go into the next round. And so I'm really excited about this next round of the fight. I love this guy. I love his opponent. I'm a big fan of the classical, Bancho kind of, style of thug kid, and that's what Kinojo is, and so I really like him. I'm almost positive that Nito is going to win this fight. I'm not under any delusion that Kinojo is going to win this fight and go on, but I really look forward to seeing how it's going to play out in the future, seeing how stubborn and determined Kinojo is to win this fight. It's super cool. It's super interesting. I love Martial Master Asumi. I think this is an incredible manga, and I really hope it goes on for a long time. So I really like this chapter. It was really good. But that's all I got to say about Martial Master Asumi this week. And so that will bring us to Blue Box. This week, chapter 119 was released. And so we get the follow-up to the Valentine's Day chocolate kind of thing that started last week. And more development on Ayame and Ryu's pseudo-relationship thing. He isn't initially there, so she can't give him his special chocolates that she made him, Ryu. And so this starts a whole series of, worry on her end. And then we see Taiki get interviewed by this guy, who's this journalist, I guess, with Haruyu and his determination to beat Haruyu in this. And they have a funny little back and forth. I love the relationship that Haruyu and Taiki have. I think their relationship is so funny and so good. And so cool and so true to what this kind of relationship in a high school setting is. I think that this is very realistic, and so I really like it. But back to the main thing. Ryo. Sorry. Wow. I don't know what I said there. Finally comes and he sees Ayame, and they are kind of, they are awkward, and they were going to go up. But then Hina comes over and gives Kyo chocolates. And it seems like that was not surprising to me, right? It wasn't surprising that Hina would give him chocolates, because this is the kind of relationship that I think that they have, that Hina and him and Taiki have had. It would make sense for her to give even both of them chocolates. I get why maybe she wouldn't do that now for Taiki, after everything that's happened. But definitely for Ryu, it makes sense. It totally makes sense. But Ayame doesn't want to get in the way of Hina's advances, because she was a part of Hina and Taiki's moment before, and so she really is friends with Hina, and she doesn't want to get in that way. And then of course we find Matsuoka. Matsuoka is the upperclassman that I did not like at first, but he seems, the more and more we learn about this man, he seems just sympathetic. He had a crush on Shinatsu, and he definitely just wanted Shinatsu to like him back, and that doesn't happen. So he's kind of dug a hole for himself as far as Valentine's Day chocolates. Even though he should, be popular, he doesn't actually get, any chocolates on this day. And so that kind of makes sense. But his teammate is like, please give him some. And Ayame ends up giving him the chocolate she made for Ryu specifically. And so she is like, this is who I am. I need to live more carefree. This is what I need to do. But Ryu walks by and sees this. And then he says to himself, dodge that. I almost got the wrong idea. What I love about this is that Ryu definitely thought for a moment that maybe there was more here than he originally anticipated. Maybe Ayame did like him. But this confirms that that's not true for him, right? And that is so sad. Let me tell you, that is so very sad. I hated that's how they walked away from that, because this is the relationship that I think is the most interesting in this series for me right now, is between Ayame and Ryu. And so I think that this is a sad way to end this. Obviously, I don't think this is the end of that relationship, but I think it will stall for a little while, because I think Ayame is going to go back to tricking herself into thinking she doesn't have feelings for Ryu, and Ryu is going to say, okay, well, she didn't actually have feelings for me. I imagined that, and so I'm going to move on with my life, because that's the kind of guy that Ryu is, right? He doesn't want to bother others. And so I get that. And so then, of course, complications arise. Taiki sees that Matsuoka has this candy box that looks the same as the one that Chinatsu gave to him, and so he thinks, or as the one he saw Chinatsu have yesterday, and so he gets scared and is like, oh my word, she gave it to him. He's like, this can't be happening, and after everything, you can see why he's worried. This was the guy, he knows this guy is a crush on Chinatsu. He knows that this is, indirectly or directly his competition with her. And so, he gets worried, and Chinatsu catches him, pulls him aside, and then gives him his box. And I love that. And then I love the ending where she simply says, my boyfriend is you, Taiki. And so it was such a great way to end this chapter, because while it it kind of counterbalances this uneasiness and sadness that I have towards Ayame and Ryu, and they're not getting together, is coupled with this cute kind of thing that Taiki and Chinatsu have going on, and their resolution that, although this could have been a bigger problem, it wasn't. And I am continually shocked ever since they actually confessed their feelings for one another and got together. I am continually shocked that there has not been more problems in this relationship. I really thought that what was going to happen is we were going to have to then deal with the reality of what life is in relationships, but they really haven't touched on that with these two at all. And obviously they have many other options, many other avenues to do that. And this relationship is still pretty new. So I think that we maybe can get there, but as always, I'm excited to see what goes forward. I love reading Blue Box. It's one of my favorites that's going on right now. So yeah, but that was Blue Box this week. Next up, we have the Elusive Samurai. This week, chapter 127 was released. And this chapter picks up where we left off last time. They got Yasue down from, back from the enemy. And so they've taken him to safety, and they continue their assault on the little fortress that's going on, and their assault on Ienaga. And we see actually that Nita shows up for this raid with somebody's head. So I don't know who that was. But they show up and they're ready to fight, and everything seems to go down. So Ienaga sounds the retreat bell and tells, this guy's name is hard to say, Uesugi, maybe, I don't know. He tells him retreat. He tells him to go back, to retreat with everybody, and that he will join them later, which is not true, as we find out. He and Tokiyuki meet on the top of the steps, but we find out that Uesugi finds the letter of plan number 4, which in this plan, Ienaga has to die here. He has to sacrifice himself so that the Kamakura branch of warriors for the Ashikaga looks good. And that makes sense. I mean, this fits with the time period. The Elusive Samurai is a very time period rich manga. It is very much focused on correctly, or at least mostly correctly, telling Japanese, the actual history of this warring period in the history of Japan. But I love this face-off between Ienaga and Tokiyuki. I think that this is a face-off that I've been waiting for a while. And I love that Akane is like, yeah, do a one-on-one battle right here. Let's see. And we see that Ienaga before this, we see a flashback to him growing up with the rest of the people that we remember fighting earlier in this manga. Like warriors that were terrifying, that were very strong. And we see him in battle with those people and learning from them as a kid, and now he's come here to the end to face Tokiyuki, to face Hojo Tokiyuki, who is his like mortal enemy. I mean, these two are around the same age. This makes sense. It's very cool. I love that ending panel where they call him the Demon of Revenge, where he's here to fight Tokiyuki. And so I'm definitely looking forward to next week. I hope that this one-on-one duel is very, very cool. But I loved this chapter. I love all of the background and the emotions we get from Ienaga. I just think it's really cool. I'm a big fan of Japanese history. I'm a fan of definitely the Elusive Samurai as a manga. Again, I collect it, so I really like it. And this is just a chapter that really highlights all the things that I think are so cool about this manga. And that Yusei Matsui, the mangaka who writes and illustrates this manga, is so dedicated to making this his masterpiece. It's so cool. It's just really cool. It's a very cool chapter. That's really all I had to say about the Elusive Samurai this week, but it was just great. And that'll bring us to Cipher Academy. This week, Chapter 42 was released, and so we're finally inside of the Cipher Academy metaverse. We're inside of the digital Cipher Academy, and we see a double-page spread of the group, the whole group that came in. We saw part of the group last week, right? We saw the part of the group that Iroha took in, but Irohazaka took in, rather. But now we see the whole group that came in. Everybody who is coming into the Digital Cipher Academy, we get to see them all. So that's cool. And we get the Digital Cipher Academy explained to us, right, through this AI program called Dekii-chan, I guess is what they call it. So Dekii explains the whole what's going on, and that the goal is to reach the basement floor 500, and to get through every floor they have to solve a code. And so this makes sense. I mean, this is very Cipher Academy. It's very all the things that we've known before. My guess is that these codes are going to be harder, and they've each started out at a different level based on what the AI system perceives is their assumed starting level. And it looks like the highest level, the person with the highest level, is Toshusai, and that makes sense. Toshusai has always been, the most skilled of the group, and the lowest is of course Irohazaka. Of course he's the lowest member, and that makes sense. I do think he brings up a good point where he's like, wait a minute, I did really well in the class-wide battle, but of course special events don't count as much as just regular grades. And so we see the first code, which is just a QR code. And so we see that Iroha is able to solve this. I'm going to be honest with you guys, I don't actually get how he was able to solve that. But the most important thing in this chapter is that Toshusai is back to being an enemy. Toshusai has declared that her and Irohazaka are not on the same team anymore. That she intends to get to the cryptocurrency and use it for her own ends. And so Iroha is back in the game. And so yeah, it's really neat. And so we see that Irohazaka has solved the puzzle and immediately fallen down a hole, and finds himself on the next floor, the air raid shelter floor. So that's really all I have to say about this chapter. So the next manga that we're going to cover is Icehead Gill. This week, chapter 14 was released. And last week we saw Gill unlock the relic that he had, which apparently gives him the ability to control water. And this chapter is all about him, trying out different things to control that water in his fight against the lich that is fighting him with the fire whip thing. And so definitely, Greatest and Sliz are having some trouble on their end taking out these giant liches that are huge, and every time they take them out, they just regenerate and come back together. I think also Sana became the Book of Wisdom, which is really cool. I think that's awesome. That's awesome development. I didn't know that Idun was gonna actually die this soon, but I'm okay with it because I like Sana a lot. I think Sana is a good addition to the team, and I look forward to seeing how being the Book of Wisdom goes what that does to who Sana is. But all things considered, the attack at the end where Gill made the dragon of ice come out of the water was awesome. So I'm looking forward to what these powers and what Gill's mastery of his relic means. I like the fish swimming thing that's going on to master these powers. So I don't have a whole lot of concrete thoughts about Ice Head Gill this week, but those are kind of the thoughts that I had this week. Next up, we've got Kill Blue. This week, Chapter 23 was released, and of course, the aftermath of Norin falling in love with Ogami has happened. We see that she's fallen in love with him because of the hypnosis. I like the analogy of any dad with his toddler daughter. This would be cute, but you would be you should go to jail if you're into your high school daughter saying this. So that was really funny. She's clearly just so head over heels, and then he knocks her out, and Sendo is holy cow, dude, that's not cool. But then of course we see Kazuma Rindo, the enemy, come back and beg for his brother's life. And so we see that going on, and he tries to hypnotize Sendo to forget all the things that he learned about Ogami, but that doesn't work on Sendo. Of course it doesn't work on Sendo. That's such a him thing to have happen. And I love the thought of why can't you keep going to school? Ogami thinks okay, well, I can't return to school, my mission is a failure. And Sendo's why not? I mean, why does it matter that that's the case? And so they end up leaving, and they meet back up with the guy, the girl that he calls Capo. I think her name is Chono, maybe. I don't know. Or maybe she just reminds me of Hina from Blue Box. But they meet back up with her and everything. And so then the chapter ends with us seeing Ogami at school, trying to dodge Norin everywhere that she goes. So it's going to be funny from here on out. It's going to be kind of hilarious. We're going to probably have next week's chapters all about going to be dodging Norin. And so it'll be funny. It'll be interesting to see. But this little mini arc with these brothers has been really cool. I really like both of these brothers. I hope they do show up at the school in the future because I really like them. But that's really all I had to say about Kill Blue this week. Next up, we have Me and Roboco, chapter 155. This week focuses on Matsuo. We see Matsuo's dad just failing at his YouTube career, which is really funny and very realistic. As somebody who's tried to make videos on YouTube, it's just, sometimes it doesn't take off, and that's kind of how life is and stuff like that. And so it's just funny to see where he is in life, and even his former company begging him to come back. But it was great to see how Matsuo has coped with this, how he's he sews his clothes back together in a funky way, and how he budgets and found somehow made a what is essentially a Pokeball, and all of that. It's so wholesome. I think this whole chapter has just been a wholesome example of Matsuo's family, of him and his dad and Meiko, and all that they have strived for, and Matsuo's clear determination to still be successful, even from the origins, from the place that he is in now. So it was good. It was a feel-good chapter. I really definitely liked it. I like those feel-good Me and Roboco chapters, and that was definitely one of them. In fact, I like really any chapter that focuses on either Matsuo or Gachi Gorilla. I like them, both of them, a lot. Not to say I don't like Bondo, I just, I think that those chapters end up being more wholesome. But less references. I didn't catch any references this time to Shonen Jump in this chapter, but it was very wholesome, it was very good, and that's kind of what I thought about Me and Roboco this week. And with that, we are led into Mission Yozakura Family. This week, chapter 196 came out. We are back at the wedding, at Shinzo's wedding. And we see all these people that we've seen throughout the series before, right? These people, Rin and Hotokiyama, Oga, Sui, and all these people that we've seen before throughout the manga are back. Even Kai, the president, and Shura, the girl who's obsessed with Futaba, all of them are back. And so Taiyo is kind of coming up with this plan, and he realizes that he's really one of the only people that are going to be able to execute any kind of plan, because he's the only one that Ryu doesn't have something over on them. And of course, Ryu is extravagant and ridiculous and flamboyant, and comes out in the angel wing get up and makes a whole fuss, and everybody hates it, and it's so funny. It is actually really funny, I think. Again, we hear Ryu, like in his head, say Takemi. I don't know who Takemi is. I still don't understand what's going on, but, you know, we'll probably find out about this as this little mini arc continues. But this, above all, this was a Taiyo chapter. We learned that the spy world is actually super afraid of Taiyo. He's become an incredibly capable spy, and of course he has, right? We always knew that Taiyo was going to become incredibly capable, but I love that he has this, like, fearful aura because he has no dirt. He's just a good guy. And so that's kind of funny. It makes me laugh. But we also see that it's up to him, Hifumi, and Alpha to get Shinzo out of this situation, because those are the only three that can make a move right now. And so I'm so excited to see Taiyo and his kids be able to break Shinzo out of this situation. And I'm excited to see where this, you know, little mini arc continues and where it goes, because everybody's here, and that's super interesting. But yeah, that's really all I had to say about Mission Yozakura this time around. And that will bring us to the Ichinose Family's Deadly Sins, Chapter 43, came out this week. This was a big one. So Sota and Tsubasa are talking about how they're going to get out of this dream. They have to get out of this dream, and they have to wake everybody else up and go back to their regular life. And as they're talking about this, their mom comes in, and she, like, sits them down and wants to listen to them. And then we see Sota have a flashback. One of the things that I loved about this chapter is it reinserted this, like, eerie kind of feeling that I think this manga does really well all throughout, and it really lays it on in this chapter. And we see Sota have a little bit of a flashback, right? He flashes back to how his kind of role in this family was always listening to the complaints of every other member of the family. We see, you know, his mom, grandpa, grandma, dad, you know, obviously Tsubasa and Shiori, his little siblings, they all kind of relied on him to be a good listener, and he was a good listener. And this is something he took pride in, but he was never listened to. Although all these people unloaded on him and gave him all these, you know, responsibilities, nobody ever listened to him at all. And in fact, that's what led to the camera breaking incident, right? Is that no one listened to him. And that's what has hurt Sota so bad. And so then we snap back to the dream, right? Where Tsubasa is again saying, okay, we got to get out of here. But then the mom sits down with Sota and tries to say that she's willing to listen to him, and he is not able to hear that. He just keeps saying now she wants to listen, right? He keeps laying into this. But she brings up the pictures. And she brings up that he's good at photography, and that she'll help talk to Grandpa about this, so that he doesn't have to follow in his footsteps, right? And then we see Sota turn into a little kid. And Shiori goes to Tsubasa, and again says, what's wrong with living this way? And again, I think this is the whole theme of this manga, is why not live in a dream state where everything is good? And one of the things I think this chapter introduces is those things that we got wrong before. If we had an infinite amount of time to retry them, eventually would we get them right? And eventually, would that be better for everybody? And I think that Sota has just lost his will to go back to the real world. And so again, we're left with just Tsubasa, who wants to go back to the real world. And Tsubasa's on his own again. And that's really sad. And maybe that's not true. Maybe next chapter, Sota will get up and everything will be fine, and he'll go back to being his usual self. But it really feels like this overture that his mother made has opened a door in Sota's head that's going to be hard to take care of for Tsubasa to really reason with. And so I thought this was a phenomenal chapter this week. I like this manga. I've liked this manga since it first came out. And this eerie feeling that this manga is able to give us, I think, is so cool and such a good addition to the magazine right now. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the Ichinose family's deadly sins. And last but not least, this week we have Witch Watch. This week, chapter 127 came out. And we get to the continuing fight between Ran and Morihito. We learned that the Kaigoku technique has sapped Morihito of a lot of his strength. And so we get a little bit of talking. We get some background for Ran's life, what his goal is, and his goal is to die. He's been cursed by, simply being born to live forever. He's been cursed with this thing. And he has to give it to someone else, but he refuses to have a child of his own to pass this on, right? He doesn't want this to go any further. He knows the pain of never dying, and he doesn't want that. And so we see his first interaction with another witch who wants to revive Jura. And so he proves that he's a witch, and then he says, I have the bone of Ran's mother. And if he could resurrect his mother, then he could go back, he could die, he could give this ability of never dying back to his mother, and that this is enticing and this is what he wants. But Morihito seems to have picked up that that's not what's going on, and that there's a layer where Ran wants to see his mother again. And so Ran insists that there's no other ulterior motive, and Morihito is sad, because Morihito remembers his mother, and says, I get it. I would want to see my mom again too, but Ran is saying that's not what's going on, but I think we all know that's probably what's going on. But Morihito sees Kanchi. Kanchi is going to get the crows, and they have to come up with a plan. And so their plan now is to get the flower into Morihito's hand so that he can stab it into Ran himself. So this is a big gamble. Morihito is definitely tired out, but we're going to see now, going forward, how this plays out. And I think that we have a good shot. I mean, I think this is probably going to work. I think that we're going to be able to take Ran down. But now, one of the things that this chapter has done that I think is very helpful is the chapter has introduced us to another big bad, this witch that talked to Ran originally. There's no way that witch is just going to stop after this assault, although this is by far the biggest assault that this witch has made that this warlock has made on Nico. But this is not going to stop here. This is going to keep going. So, with all that said, this is a great, Witch Watch chapter. Really cool, kind of background knowledge between how the non-dying witch curse thing works, and background knowledge about Ran. And so it was a really cool chapter, but that's really all I have to say about Witch Watch this week. And so that'll bring us to the end of another Shonen Express podcast and the end of another weekly Shonen Jump. So, for those of you who don't know, I like to fill out the survey at the end of Weekly Shonen Jump. Before I do that, I want to mention One Piece was on break this week. That's why, if you were looking for a One Piece chapter coverage on this show, there was no One Piece chapter this week. I think it'll be back next week. And we did get 2 chapters 2 weeks in a row of it on. So, that's kind of unusual. So, nothing unusual here. We'll get more One Piece in the future. But I want to go through my reader survey, my top 3 manga in the magazine this week. And my number 3 this week goes to The Elusive Samurai. I think the setup with Ienaga and Tokiyuki was really cool, and I look forward to what this fight will actually end up playing out as. I love the background for Ienaga as well. My number 2 manga this week was Akane-Banashi. I love Chocho as a character. I'm really interested to see him in the future as he continues to be a part in this story. I like the kind of Lady Luck kind of thing he's got going on, so I'm very interested in that, and the similarities to Akane are very, very interesting to me. So I love that chapter this week too. But my number 1 pick this week has to go to the Ichinose family's deadly sins. This chapter brought back that gloomy feeling, that eerie kind of creepy feeling that I think this manga does so well with, as well as I think bringing us back to a place where Tsubasa is by himself. And so I'm looking forward to seeing where this manga is going to go and how this manga is going to resolve itself. I'm a big fan, and I can't wait to see more of it. But those are my top 3 rankings this week. Let me know down in the comments what your top 3 rankings was, what your Shonen Jump survey would be if you sent it in to the publishers. I'd love to hear that. I'd also love to talk to you about anything that you've heard me say in this video that you want to talk about, or any series that you read that you want to talk about with me. Please put your comments down there in the comment section. I'd love to be able to talk to you about that. Any series that you're reading. But if you liked anything I had to say, you like these podcasts, you want me to keep making these videos, definitely like this video, subscribe to my channel. Hopefully every week I'll be able to put out another podcast like this. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcast or Spotify, definitely leave a review on this podcast. And yeah, I would just love any support that you guys are able to give me. But until next time, this is Shonen Express signing off.